In this section, we are going to see that when the icon cart is clicked, how can we add that particular product in the global store. So now let's go to coding. Now we are going to create an action. So going to create a folder named cart, and of course the index.js file. And also create the type.js. I'm going to define the action types here. Now here I have defined the add cart item as an action type. Now let's go to index.js. And here I'm going to define the action creators. I'm going to import the action types. And add cart item is going to be the action creator. So now we are going to dispatch the action. The action we are going to dispatch is add cart item. Now here I'm going to say the action type, that is the add cart item, and the data of course. And this we are going to dispatch. Now inside the index of product folder, we are going to dispatch the action. This function is going to be called on click of the cart icon. So let's just configure the function first. Here on the click event, we are going to call the function add cart item, that is, and there will be reference of the item object which we are passing to add cart item. Let me correct this. Now we are going to see in the console whether we get the item data or not. Now I'm going to click on the cart item. As you can see that the item related data is now passed inside the function, and whichever item I click, the respective data is getting displayed. Now we need to dispatch from this place. So I'm going to say dispatch. And we are going to pass the item data to the add cart item. Now the next step is that we are going to create the reducer so that we can store the data. The reducer will also be cart. Now inside cart, I create a file index.js. I will need the action types here, so I'm going to import that. Now I'm initializing the state here. Item, which is going to be an array. Item price total. Total items. And total quantity. So these are the fields I am deciding for the cart. Now let's define the logic which is going to store the data. We'll have the state data here, which I am initializing with this init state. And of course, I'm going to receive the action when an event is dispatched. Let me also put a switch here. Now when the add cart item is clicked, I need to do something here. So that's the first case I'm going to define. Now here we have to update the state with the received data. So I'm going to create a variable temporary data. and assigning the data value received from the dispatched action. At the moment I am writing temp data.quantity is equal to 1. Later on we'll make it dynamic. At the moment I am fixing it. I'll say temp data.item price total. I'm also adding an item total here. And I'm going to write some formula, that is price into quantity. And then the updated state. Now let's update the individual fields also. Now I'm going to use the reduce method of array, which will help me to retrieve the sum of all the values. And if there is no value, then it will be 0. Now we are going to update the total items, which will be state.item.length and the total quantity. Where again I'm going to use the reduce. Let's also add the default state. Now let's also add this new reducer inside the combined reducer. Now here we need to import the second action. So now for every action, if you do not want to import, then we can export all from the main folder. There we can have one more index.js file. So let's do that. In the actions folder, I'm going to create the file called index.js. And here I'm going to export all actions. So right now we have these 3 actions. Now here in the product index.js, we are going to say import star as actions from actions folder. So now I'm going to add the cart object here in the store, and let's also dispatch this. Now I'm adding a use effect here. Here we are going to check every time when there is a change made to cart. We want to see what data we are getting. In use effect, I'm using the cart as a parameter. So I'm watching the cart, and let's put a console log here from reducer, and we display the cart. Now let's go to the output and we click on the icon. So you see that from reducer we get the message, and if I expand the data, so we have the item, but the item price total, total item and total quantity is not updated. So for that, let's go back to the coding. Now we are going to add the temp data. And here also we'll add the temp data quantity. Let's save this. Back to the output. Now you see that we have the data getting updated. Now let's also click on some other item. Now you see that the quantity is 2, the price total, and total item. So now the cart is shaping up inside the Redux store also. Now in this output, let me click the selected item once again. So here I click on product 1. Now if you see, the quantity is 3, which is fine, but the items are added separately. Now when the same item is selected, what it should do is, it should just update the quantity rather than adding it as a new item. So now let's make changes for that as well. So now we go to the reducer, and here we have to put a validation and the logic that if the item is existing, then update the quantity and the price instead of adding a new item. So I'll declare a variable, let item exists, in which I'm going to use the find method, which will allow me to check whether that item is existing or not. If the item is not existing, this portion will be the else part. And if the item is existing, then there is some different logic. I'll add the quantity, also the total items, also the total price, and we are going to return the state. I'll just copy this data and paste it here. The only thing is, I'll not use the temp data here. Let's save this and check the output again. Let me clear the console. I click on product 1. Now let's click on product 2. So there are 2 items now. Now let's click back on product 1. Now you see that there are only 2 items, and total item says that 2 total items, but the quantity is 3, and prices are also updated. And the object of item, that is product 1, is changed with quantity 2, and item total, that is the total price, is 20. Now you see that when this icon is clicked, the items are updated in the store. Now you observe this icon, which is a cart icon. This is where we need to update something, that how many items are there in the cart. Let's also implement that. That cart is actually part of the header component. So let's go to the header. And here is the shopping cart icon. Now this is where we have to play. So now I'm going to import the use selector because we need the data here. Let's take the cart data. Now let's add a static value first. You see that there is value 2 coming. Now this 2 needs to be dynamic. So cart.item.length will give us the total number of items. So when it is greater than 0, . we need this dynamic value. Let's check the output now. Let's click on the cart. You see that there is one getting displayed. Let's click on the second item. So we have 2 items. At the moment we are showing unique items. You can certainly show quantity also. It depends on what kind of cart you want to create. Let's go back to the coding. We need to change the CSS also. So this is the class where we need to make changes. Let me debug the issue. We need to change the placement of this element. Tip class is already applied on that division. I'll make the respective changes here. And this I'll make a bright color like orange. Now let's try it again. Now you see that the orange icon is getting displayed. Let's change the font color. And the font weight as well. And you see that it is more prominent and it is changing on every click of the cart icon. So now we are done with this functionality which is related to cart. In the next section, now we are going to apply that when the categories, the selected categories are clicked, we need to display the related products.